Hello, everybody, and you're very welcome to the third week of our virtual missions for the GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme. We're delighted to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be an exciting week as we wrap up these virtual missions, and we've got some great talks for you, some great content, and I'm sure that you'll be grateful and excited about some of the things that we've got going on for you. So let me just start with running through a few points that you'll want to bear in mind for this week. Obviously, these are broadcast via YouTube or Facebook, and we do that so that you can access the material as you wish. It will be available later on those channels, so if you want to rewatch anything, you can do that at your leisure. The other way that you can engage with us on that is please do use the YouTube chat or the Facebook chat. That allows you to ask questions to our panelists, and we normally have a Q&A at the end of every session. Today we have that as well, so we'd welcome your questions. Please do ask them and engage with us, and then we can pass those on to the panelists. The format for this week is we've got a number of events, opportunities for you to connect. The best way to do that is through Meeting Mojo, which is our online networking platform. What that allows you to do is to book slots with other delegates and members that are joining us this week and build towards collaborations and things of that nature. So do please join up with that. I also want to talk about the pitching competition that we've got on Wednesday. You've got an opportunity to present your material, 2-minute opportunity to other members, and it's competition, so the winner will be showcased across KTN and various platforms that we have. We've had some great competition entries so far, and you've probably got another day or two just to wrap up if you really want to submit something for that. It's on Wednesday, but the deadline for that is Tuesday, so tomorrow. So please do submit something quickly if you wish. If you're on Twitter and you would like to tweet about this event, use the hashtag AgriFood Africa, and that will find the right audience. And then the last thing I want to mention is just the panel session that we have on Friday. Just highlight some of the speakers you can see on the screen there. So we've got Ben Bennett, Callum Murray, and Edwin Koje speaking, and they're going to have a great session of discussion. They'll take questions, so if you want to participate in that live event, then do join the stream, and then you can ask the questions as you come along. So let me just start by introducing myself and my speakers. So my name is Tim Messeder. I work for the KTN, principally on this program. I'm Knowledge Transfer Manager here. Today we have Jane, who is the lead on this program. She works for the KTN, and she's going to introduce us to the program and to the week and what we're doing. We've also got Catherine Miller, who works for Alleviates UK as an innovation lead. She works principally on this program, so she's got a lot of material to share with you on that. We've also got a couple of other speakers. We've got our distinguished guest, Madame Faburi, who is speaking to us from the Gambia. She's our keynote speaker. She's got some great material for us, and we're very much looking forward to hearing her presentation shortly. She's the Agricultural Minister for the Gambia, I should say, as well, just to let you know what she's doing. We've got David Akana joining us. He is giving us an overview of the sector. He works for CORAF, and they work very much within Western Africa, have great innovation and connections there. So we're very pleased that he was able to present and to join us. So we'll hear those speakers in a few moments. If you have any questions that you have, please do type them into the chat, and we'll get them through to us. It's great to hear you and to have you with us. And let's go to our first speaker.
Hello, I'm Jane Brookman, the KTN lead for the GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme. In the title slide here, you can see the members of the KTN AgriFood team working on this project, including the head of AgriFood, David Telford, and my key colleague within the team, Tim Messeder, who you will hear from on several occasions throughout this week. On behalf of KTN, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this inaugural set of virtual missions. I hope that you find them both interesting and productive, whether you're joining us just for one or many sessions throughout the next 3 weeks. But first of all, I would like to quickly introduce you to the Knowledge Transfer Network, or KTN. We are funded by Innovate UK and others to support innovation for the benefit of the economy and society. We bring together businesses, entrepreneurs, academics and government or other funders to inform business innovation and research needs, to build businesses and to grow technologies for the benefit of all. And my colleague from Innovate UK, Catherine Miller, will describe more later today on the background, aims and approaches of the GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme. But I'd just like to highlight the dissemination and collaboration activity component of the programme, which I'm responsible for. Now, a large part of this work is capacity building, as shown on the block at the bottom right. And we do this through a range of outreach activities and collaborative events. We're responsible for building networks between members of the agri-food systems within African countries and those stakeholders within the UK. And of course, ordinarily, we would have embarked upon a number of face-to-face missions to encourage future collaboration and allow a number of companies from the UK to learn more about possible African partners and their economies. But clearly, with the changes in the world brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, these face-to-face missions are just not possible at this time. We therefore decided to try a different approach, and hence we've designed these virtual missions to continue that effort to build community, with the possible advantage, you might think, that we can engage with a wider range of African countries than we would have been able to visit face to face. We will also be able to encourage a larger number of businesses, academics and other stakeholders from the UK to learn something of the agri-food systems across the entire sub-Saharan regions of Africa. Of course, we will also be providing opportunities for networking in much the same way as we would have done ordinarily if we'd have had a physical face-to-face mission. And we'll be introducing the next round of the Agritech Catalyst funding. Now, these missions will be split according to the three geographical regions shown in this slide, and we're also split across 2 separate weeks of activities. The first week will feature a variety of morning and afternoon activities aimed at informing UK audiences and providing UK and African companies interested in finding out more about doing business from a sort of creation or exploitation of innovation angle with both information and contacts. We hope to provide an opportunity for potential UK and African partners to highlight their capabilities and to outline what they're looking for in any future relationship. The first week for each region will be structured as shown in this slide. On Monday, the programme overview and funding mechanisms, where we provide you with a general overview of the AgriFood Africa Programme and how we aim to work together with both UK and African agri-food partners. On Tuesday, the regional profiles and networking sessions, where more information on the regional features of the African agri-food landscape will be provided and a formal opportunity for networking. On Wednesday and Thursday, we will basically have mirror days where we showcase UK and African experience and capability, followed by specific pitches. These days provide examples of working together, the capabilities, technologies and expertise that organisations can bring to potential joint projects. The pitches are 2-minute long videos, and we encourage you to consider submitting a pitch for your own interests and capabilities, and also to join in the sessions to hear the others submitted and perhaps contact them through the networking sessions. On Friday, there'll be a networking session and a panel, and we finish the week off with a formal networking session and a short panel discussion to consider the week's activities. So here's a reminder that we'd like to encourage everyone to take part in the networking activities throughout the week, to learn from each other and to seek help from KTN if there is any needed. The second week for each set of regional activities will provide further opportunities to engage, and these will be run from mid-July, with Southern and Central in the week commencing 13th of July, Eastern the following week commencing July 20th, and finally the Western region week commencing 27th of July. This second week is focused on hearing back from participants of the first week, really, providing support for consortia through practical activities such as clinics and workshops for writing applications. How can we help complete consortia, for example, if one specific partner is sought, or an end user maybe? We'd like to hear from you as participants on what would help you and what you would like to hear or find out about in this second week, and we can then try to tailor the programme. We're aiming to try and put together 2 to 3 sessions each week. So finally, I'd like to thank all the speakers who have agreed to give up their time under quite difficult circumstances to help us try to keep the GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme rolling on and to generate some real activity in terms of increasing mutual understanding of the agri-food systems of sub-Saharan Africa and the UK. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Jane. It was very useful to see the role of KTN within this programme and also the overview of this week. We are now going to hear from Catherine Miller, who is going to give us an overview of the greater programme which these virtual missions sit. So, over to you, Catherine.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's event. I'm delighted to see so many of you online today. I'm Catherine Miller, and I'm Innovation Lead for Food and Nutrition at Innovate UK. This is a short summary of what I'm going to cover in the next 10 minutes. So I'm going to give a brief overview of Innovate UK and UK Research and Innovation, a background to the Global Challenges Research Fund, talk about the challenge that the funding is trying to address, and then cover some of the work we have done already around the Agritech Catalyst. And then I'm going to give an overview of the GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme. Innovate UK is part of UK Research and Innovation, or UKRI. UKRI brings together the 7 research councils, Innovate UK and Research England, and together with government we invest over £7 billion a year in research and innovation by partnering with academia and industry to fund the best research. As part of UK Research and Innovation, Innovate UK drives productivity and economic growth by supporting businesses to develop and realise the potential of new ideas, including those from the UK's world-class research base. We support businesses to realise the potential of new technologies, develop ideas and make them a commercial success. We are the UK's innovation agency. The UK's Agritech strategy was launched in 2013 with the aims of improving the translation of research into practical application for agriculture and related industries in the UK and overseas. This was an initial investment of £160 million, which funded 4 Agritech centres for innovation and also the Agritech Catalyst for translational research. There are 4 centres for agricultural innovation in the UK. These are CHAP, Crop Health and Protection, which focuses on crop pests and disease and protecting natural resources as well as soil health. AgriEpi, which focuses on precision engineering. Agrimetrics, focusing on collating, connecting and analysing complex data. And CL, focusing on livestock nutrition, health and genetics. These centres have grown the UK's capacity for world-class research. They're open access platforms to be used by anyone, aiming to deliver applied research to solve industry problems. The centres work together as a family and can act as a gateway into the UK market. The Global Challenges Research Fund, or GCRF, is a £1.5 billion fund announced by the UK government in late 2015. It aims to support cutting-edge research that addresses the challenges faced by developing countries. GCRF forms part of the UK's Official Development Assistance, or ODA, commitment, which is monitored by the OECD. And alongside other GCRF delivery partners, programmes have been designed that promote challenge-led disciplinary and interdisciplinary research, strengthen capacity for research, innovation and knowledge exchange in the UK and developing countries through partnership with excellent UK research and researchers, and to provide an agile response to emergencies where there is an urgent research need. GCRF funding to support the Agritech Catalyst focuses on the GCRF challenge area, secure and resilient food systems supported by sustainable marine resources and agriculture under the Equitable Access to Sustainable Development theme. This coordinated programme of activities has been designed to realise the sustainable management of the food production systems in a way that alleviates poverty, enhances economic prosperity and delivers improved well-being, with key outcomes including sustainable intensification in African agriculture, improvements in human health and diversity in diets and nutrition, having a positive impact on rural income and food security, and facilitating trade in agricultural products. Secondary benefits of GCRF funding will also be realised by UK businesses through new partnerships in Africa that will facilitate collaboration, trade and export opportunities for mutual benefit. The GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme is focusing on a major global challenge. We need a climate-smart agriculture and food system that by 2030 will feed the predicted global population of over 9 billion people with nutritious and safe foods. It needs to use resources sustainably, also be resilient and be able to adapt to climate change and generate inclusive jobs and growth. 75% of the poorest people in the world are rural and depend on agriculture, livestock, forestry and fisheries for their livelihoods. Innovation in developing country agriculture, particularly in Africa, is low, and new innovation and technology is needed to tackle emerging threats such as climate change and new pests and diseases. Another major investment under the Agritech strategy was the Agritech Catalyst. The government investment was a total of £70 million. The Catalyst has funded well over 150 projects to date, and these are industry and research collaborative projects to improve translation of research into practical applications for agriculture and related industries in the UK and overseas. There was £10 million initial investment from the Department for International Development, and another £10 million of funding has since been invested between 2018 and today. So DFID has funded the Catalyst since 2013 and has funded it so far across 9 competition rounds. 58 projects have been funded, 53 of those have been in Africa. Now this has delivered over £20 million of grant funding across 13 African countries. Round 9 projects haven't been announced yet, but will fund a further 13 projects and provide an additional £6 million worth of funding. Of the 58 projects funded through the Agritech Catalyst, the scope has been broad, covering research and innovation in agriculture, food systems and nutrition. Projects are focused on control of crop pests and disease, adding value to waste, reducing food losses in the supply chain and improving food safety. We have also funded projects looking at non-food uses of crops, improving productivity for smallholder farmers and tackling livestock disease, for example vaccinations. Innovate UK has received funding from the GCRF programme to complement the existing international development arm of the Agritech Catalyst and work alongside the DFID Agritech Catalyst investment to develop innovative technology in agriculture, food systems and nutrition in Africa. This is a £26 million 5-year programme that started last year. A coordinated programme of activities has been designed to stimulate innovation in agriculture, food system and nutrition. The programme has a broad scope, recognising that to improve nutrition for all in both rural and growing urban areas, we need to make changes not only in how food is grown and produced, but also how it's processed, transported, marketed and consumed, taking into account the whole supply chain and innovation in all areas of it. The GCRF AgriFood Africa Programme is made up of 3 main activities: the Technology Accelerator Programme, Skills Training and Dissemination and Collaboration activity. The Technology Accelerator Programme includes funding for seeding awards. These are being led by the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council, or BBSRC. They are academic pump priming awards to fund short projects to accelerate impact. These aim to build on previous investments made by UK research and innovation and provide an opportunity for UK research organisations to work with African organisations on an agri-food challenge. These are about building on existing investments and accelerating impact. The Technology Accelerator Programme also includes industry-led collaborative research and development and builds on the success of the Agritech Catalyst. And this has allowed us to provide more funding for high quality projects and to fund additional rounds of the Catalyst. Round 10 of the Catalyst is due to open in July this year and close in October with £2.5 million available. There is also funding for further rounds of the Catalyst and funds specifically aimed at later stage research, and you can find out more about the Catalyst specifically this afternoon. The skills and training activity is based on the Knowledge Transfer Partnership or KTP model, funding partnerships across a series of competition rounds. These aim to embed new capability in African businesses to help them grow and be successful. They will also develop new partnerships between the UK and African countries and address challenges facing agriculture and the food sector within Africa. The initial target countries are Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria and South Africa, and the KTP programme will fund 2-year knowledge transfer partnerships between a UK academic, an African academic and an African business. And you can hear more about this later in a different session. The final part of the programme is dissemination and collaboration activity. This activity includes innovation awards for early stage projects to build new collaborations, which you can hear more about in a session later on in the programme. This part of the programme is being led by the KTN, who you've heard from previously. And this programme includes developing better understanding of African needs across the agri-food supply chain through missions and outreach, and to build collaboration and partnership between the UK and Africa. And this series of virtual missions is part of the dissemination and collaboration activity. I hope that gives you an overview of the programme, and there will be further sessions on specific funding opportunities, for example, the latest round of the Agritech Catalyst later in the programme. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Catherine. It was great to hear a bit more about the programme, its goals and aims. We are now going to pass over to our keynote speaker, the Honourable Amy Fabiurai, Agriculture Minister for the Gambia, that very kindly agreed to deliver her talk on the importance of the agri-food sector to the economy of the Gambia. This talk is just audio, so you will not see the slides passing. Thank you very much.
Importance of the agri-food sector to the economy of the Gambia. Chairperson, KTN Dynamic Team, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the smiling coast of Africa, the Republic of the Gambia. At a time when we are facing serious threats to global food security because of climate change and ugly trend of COVID-19, the global community is beginning to find consensus on the need to make our agriculture and food systems more sustainable than in the past. The transition of sustainable food systems requires concerted efforts from a wider variety of stakeholders and organizations that are involved in all of those activities that bring our food from the farm to the table. It is therefore important to understand the impact of climate change and COVID-19 across the country and across the other sector in order to determine the necessary policy measures needed to ensure recovery. However, no one can reliably predict the full economic impact of the outbreak, and speculations are changing rapidly. Too much dependence on what is unknowable: how long the outbreaks last, how many countries it affects, and the extent of which the coordinated, concerted, fast-track policy response is mobilized and sustained. But what we do know is that the outbreak arrived at a weak point for the world economy, just when global growth was beginning to pick up from its lowest rate since the 2009 financial crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, an economic slump would also set back the fight against extreme poverty. It is imperative, therefore, the policy makers wherever recognize how economic harm can be transmitted from one country to another, and to act quickly to prevent its spread. The transmission of economic harm is likely to occur through several channels. For West African countries, crashing demand from China and the rest of the world will drive down major economic sector. Notably, agriculture and the tourism, countries that are highly dependent on food import, will feel the effect of global price swing most drastically. In the Gambia, the agriculture sector contributes 25% of GDP and 30 to 40% of all foreign exchange earnings from export through share of services in GDP is increasing. Agriculture and related industry contribute to economic growth, employment, poverty reduction, food security, and nutrition. This sector employs nearly half, 46% of the labor force, and is the source of livelihood for 80% of the rural population, for about 72% of poor households and 91% of extremely poor rural households. Agriculture is the main source of income. However, agriculture production in the Gambia is subsistence, rain-fed crop production, and livestock rearing, which provides half of the country's consumption needs. In the period 2008 to 2017, agriculture sector grew at an average of 2.4% per year, making the country the third least growing country in terms of agriculture in the region, after Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau. This performance can partly be attributed mainly to effect of climate change and other factors including weak research and extension system, leading to inappropriate and unsustainable farming practices and pest control low yields. Ladies and gentlemen, cereal crop yield, the staple food of Gambian population, have been declining steadily for the past 10 years compared to rest of West African increasing food import bills and persistent trend of food insecurity. For instance, the country imports 83% of its requirement for rice. In the Gambia, the Ministry of Agriculture has been encouraging systems approaches to sustainability with its renewed focus on making agriculture more productive and sustainable, alongside enabling inclusive and effective agricultural and food systems. An important aspect of this system is the role of the market in ensuring that sustainable farmed products can be preferred and valued by consumers for their intrinsic quality. Therefore, market approach drive food systems reorganization can provide interesting and innovative ways to encourage local adaptation and use of sustainable practices. Though sustainability is much more than ensuring protection of the natural resources base. To be sustainable, agriculture must meet the needs of present and the future generation for its products and the services, while ensuring profitability, environmental health, and social and economic equity. Sustainability agriculture would contribute to all four pillars of food security: availability, access, utilization, and stability, in a manner that is environmentally, economically, and socially responsible over time. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond the impact of climate change and inadequate innovation for the attainment of food and nutrition security, the interconnected world economy will be disrupted through global value chain, which account for nearly half of the global trade. Abrupt falls in commodity price, physical revenue, foreign exchange receipts, foreign financial flow, etc. Intrinsically linked, Seals AgMet Regional Centers has forecasted 2020 rainfalls to be both greater and the equivalent to the seasonal average of the 1981-2010 reference periods. Heterogeneously started of the season, generally late and end of the season, and relatively long dry spell in most coastal rivers basin, and climate change can exacerbate this situation. The consequences of a possible locust outbreak added to those of the army worms, which now infested the entire West African region, include all regions of the country, could have a long-lasting effect on the region's agricultural and food system. Ladies and gentlemen, with an anticipated erratic rain season and an imminent impact of climate change, and in line with emergency preparedness and prevention, my ministry constituted a task force. The main task of the task force was to assess the effect of global climate change on agriculture, food and nutrition security. Furthermore, the task force developed a response plan to alleviate the consequences of vulnerable households who are grappling with food insecurity due to poor crop yields in 2019. Prevalences of pest disease, small ruminant, that's the ruminant, PPR, and the Newcastle disease, and the outbreak of equine influenza. On the area of policies guidance, the country blueprint, the National Development Programme 2018-2021 seeks to move the agriculture from subsistence to a commercial-oriented modern sector with agricultural technology, agro-industry, and the agribusiness as key drivers for poverty reduction and convergence towards middle-income status. GNI 2 and the National Agricultural Resource Policy emphasize the optimum and the sustainable utilization of resources and commercialization of this sector with value chain-oriented growth. Agriculture transformation strategy aims at increasing agricultural production to achieve sustainable food security, reduce nutrition and cereal imports balance. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, there is a need to develop an agricultural transformation program that focuses on scaling up agriculture as a business through value addition support, led by the private sector and enabled by the policy sector, relying on innovative financial mechanisms to drive it. The initiative should aim to end hunger and rural poverty in Africa in the next decade through increased productivity, value addition, investment in infrastructure, creating and enabling agribusiness environment, catalyzing capital flow, ensuring inclusivity, sustainability, and effective nutrition, all in a coordinated manner.
Thank you very much, Amy. It was great to hear about the importance of the agri-food sector on the wider economy of the Gambia, and also to know about your vision for a more sustainable and commercial-focused agriculture in the country. Last but not least, we are going to hear David Akana that kindly agreed in giving us an overview of the agri-food industry in West Africa. Over to you, David.
Allow me now to address some of the broad food trends in West Africa, and most importantly, the outlook post-COVID-19. Post-COVID-19 is an important variable, and it will be hard for you to talk about food trends in the region now without talking about this very important variable, which is COVID-19. But before that, also allow me to just mention three policy milestones. Number one, it's with respect to the regional seed and seedling regulation. In the last 10 years, probably one of the biggest assignments that was entrusted to CORAF was to work on making sure that there is a harmonization of seed regulations in West Africa. As we speak right now, almost all countries, with the exception of Mauritania, have adopted this. Of course, these countries are at different levels of implementation, which we totally understand. But if you look at the 17 countries plus Mauritania and Chad, we are over 95% of implementation of these harmonized rules. What that does is that it facilitates the movement of seeds from one country to the other. It allows for uniformity in terms of a whole host of issues with respect to phytosanitary rules, regulations, pest controls, and all of that sort of thing. So I think that's a very big development in the last 10 years as far as seed movement in the region is concerned. The other thing that I'm going to highlight just very quickly, it's the integrated regional strategy for the sustainable management of agri-inputs in West Africa and in the Sahel. This responsibility has been entrusted to KORAF by the Economic Community of West African States, UMOA, which is the West African Economic and Monetary Union, as well as SEERS. And what KORAF has done is mobilize as many actors as possible, both at national and the regional level in West Africa, to be able to work on this strategy. It is the first time that West Africa is going to have an integrated agri-input strategy, so it's a good thing. It is not ended, but I'd say 80% done, because there's just a validation meeting that's expected in the next few months. The third and last thing that I want to emphasize, of course, it's an intervention that KORAF undertook. It was a regional intervention for fruit flies monitoring and control in West Africa. The major outcome of this particular intervention is the fact that it did lower or reduce the level of interceptions of mango exports from the ECOWAS region. So what you see, for instance, is that as of 2018, there were just over 57 interceptions. Now, when you rewind the clock and look at 2014, 2013, 2015, the level of interception was pretty high. And the level of interception is obviously connected to the fact that some of these fruits are obviously affected by the fruit flies. But as a result of the pest control, integrated pest control technology deployed by KORAF and the partners in the region, we've seen a significant reduction in interceptions. And that's good news. Now, having highlighted those other three major milestones, allow me now to focus on the broader food trends in the region. Obviously, this may be a cliche to most of you. Agriculture accounts for over 65% of employment in the region. It accounts for 35% of gross domestic product, the GDP. What we have right now, for instance, is that there's a huge cereal yield gap. So what we have now in the region is somewhere around 1 ton per hectare, but we can achieve 3 tons per hectare. That's possible. In terms of the average age of scientists, what is noticed is that it's over 50. Average is around 55 years. But the good news, of course, is that through the WAP, and you might have seen that in the video, there's been immense investment in terms of human capacity for the next generation of scientists. So a lot of them are already working in their countries to be able to advance research and development as well as the economy. So that's a good thing. The other trend that you find, and I think this is part of the contradiction that you find a lot in the region. So women make up the majority of the population, but just under 20% have access to technology and innovations. In continuation of some of the trends and the drivers of change in the region, what you find, for instance, and you're going to see a lot of contradictions here, right? So what you have, for instance, at this moment is over 35 billion US dollars, which is invested in food imports to Africa. That's an estimate. And this is projected to rise to close to 110 billion US dollars by 2025. That's under 5 years from now. Is that sustainable? I suspect that's not. The overall population of West and Central Africa, and I'm talking about West and Central Africa in part because this is a coverage zone of KORAF, but I know for this exercise we are essentially looking at the 15 countries of the Economic Community of West African States, which is ECOWAS. But the overall population is close to 414 million. That's significant compared to the current population of Africa, which is somewhere around 800 million. That's about half. It is expected to double by 2035. What that does is it creates a high demand for basic foods. 60% of those, I'd say, this population live on less than $2 per day. This is a sort of contradiction that I'm talking about here. So for all this population, a lot of them are still not doing well in terms of their socioeconomic or their livelihood, the sort of indicators that allows us to see if people are doing well or not. In terms of youth, there is a high youth unemployment in the region. 60% of the total population are unemployed. And what this does is it drives migration to risky destinations in search of better opportunities. You and I know this. You see them all the time traveling from the West African region through the Mediterranean to Northern Africa in search of better living conditions in Europe. Obviously, that's not sustainable. Women constitute over 60% of the farm workforce in West and Central Africa, but they have limited access to land, financial resources, technology, and innovation. And nearly 40% of children under the age of 5 are affected by stunting in West and Central Africa. 12% of suffer from acute malnutrition, and 75% are affected by anemia. Just a few more slides, a few more bullet points here before we close in terms of the broader trends. What you have now is climate change is disrupting farming and weather patterns in very substantial ways. Mechanization is really inadequate. The private sector, the involvement of the private sector, it's inefficient. There's a lot of degradation of natural resources, weak competitiveness in terms of agricultural and livestock sector. The rapid population growth and the urbanization have considerable impacts on national food and nutrition systems, and of course the weaknesses in the agricultural policies. Having said that, what's the outlook? Obviously, a lot of you should be familiar with the World Food Programme report that came out, I think, in April of this year, which warned of hunger rates of biblical proportions. And I'm going to just quote the CEO of the African Union Development Agency, who is also at the same time the honorary president of the Sahel and West African Club. He said that West Africa is in the midst of a food crisis of exceptional magnitude, and that we can do business as usual. Talking about Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki. And the question is asking is, will we be able to adjust how we do business? How strong is our cooperation capacity? Important questions, and I think obviously if you brood and think through these questions, then it allows us as a region, but not only as a region but as an international community, to think through how we put together the sort of collaborations that are required at this point for us to be able to fit not only West Africa but all of Africa and other regions that are suffering from hunger issues. Already you might be familiar with the fact that before COVID hit, the region was already having issues with respect to the fall armyworm, which you know very well, locust as well. So together with climate change and several other challenges, that puts those, I'd say, substantial threats to the food system in the region. And we haven't found solutions to all of these issues. But what these issues, particularly with COVID-19, what it informs us is we need a better anticipation system in the region. We need a better early warning system in the region. And I think these are some of the things that we'll be working on moving forward. I just want to close by raising a few issues here, and I suspect just talk a little bit about KORAF, because for most of you who will be listening, you're asking yourself, but what's KORAF all about? And I put the photo of the executive secretary of KORAF in part because DFID invested enormously in 2019 to building what you have there on your left. KORAF has a new strategic direction, a new operational plan, and a new strategic plan 2018-2027, and the operational plan that ends in the next 2 years. So that's where we are right now. Our story is essentially a story of feeding the 414 million people in West and Central Africa. We've been around for 33 years, and what we're essentially doing is working for food and nutrition security in the region. Our story is that of partnership. It's a consortium of partners at the national level from bottom up. So you have farmer groups at the national level, university systems, regional economic communities, NGOs, and the development community. We work with the World Bank. We've worked with DFID. We've worked with the Swiss Development Corporation. We're working with them at this point. The European Union and several other donors. So we are actually a consortium representing the national agricultural research systems in the various countries, 23 of those, because we cover over 23 countries in both regions. And so what we do is we are more or less sort of convening these various organizations to be able to work together to advance the research and development agenda in the region, but most importantly, to make sure that the region can fit itself. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your attention. If you do have any thoughts, any questions, any suggestions, or any ideas, I'm more than happy to take them. Thank you very much.
It's Madam, and I will. I'll ask you the question because we're not ready. Just thank you. Hi, thank you very much for joining us. We had some excellent presentations there, so thanks once again to our speakers. Very interesting to hear how the West African situation is and updates on COVID and innovation. So I would like to just open up the question with the first one to Madame Fabure. You mentioned your strategy during your talk, and I wondered, are there any particular areas that your strategy is targeting, such as cereal yields or pests? So would you be able to answer that one if possible?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. For the Gambia, our strategy, we want to be self-sufficient in rice production because our staple food is rice, and we spend a lot of money to buy rice. So based on that, we want to encourage our farmers to produce quite a number of rice. We want agriculture to commercialize also because we have quite a number of subsistence farmers. So based on that, it has to be mechanized. Then the second one is groundnut is our cash crop in the country. We want to promote that so that at least quite a number of our farmers can produce groundnuts in this country. So we want to address that one immediately. And the third one also is fruit reproduction and the vegetables. That's horticulture. We want our farmers to be self-sufficient in vegetable production and also fruits.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that answer, Madame. Just a follow-on question, if you would. We have quite a few UK-based companies who are attending this week of emissions. And obviously, a lot of those companies are looking for collaboration opportunities across West Africa and in the Gambia. So do you have, would you care to comment on just, how is the Gambia working with overseas businesses to help achieve the aims of your strategy? And, if you are a UK business at the moment, how best can they reach out and collaborate with organizations within the Gambia?
Thank you very much for that question. As the Minister of Agriculture, we want a private sector intervention because government alone cannot do it. So we are blessed with land, water, and the sunshine. It's only the technology. So if we can have the private sector intervention, that will help. That's why we want these business sectors to come to Gambia to do business.
Fantastic, thank you. That's good to know that the Gambia is open to those collaborations. And just a question for both of you, but for David and the Honourable Madame Fabure. But I'll start with David first. In terms of the innovations that you see in Western Africa in terms of agri-food production, are there specific ones that you can mention that you think actually give good examples of innovation that have helped meet some of the challenges for agri-food sector? So maybe over to yourself, David, first, and then over to Madame Fabure afterwards.
Well, thank you, Tim, for the question. First of all, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister of Agriculture here from the Gambia. We did work with them, and CORAF works a lot with the Gambia, so we want to send our greetings to the Honorable Minister. But also thank you very much for inviting CORAF to speak in this event. I have to say that it would have been great if we had complemented the video that we sent out alongside with the presentation, but I understand that was more than the 15 minutes that you had allocated for this program. So that video in itself would have given you probably an insight into some of the innovations that are being devised in the region. In the last 10 years, you've had probably over 200 proven technologies in all commodities that you can think about at this point, whether it's in the cereal sector, it's in the mangrove rice, in fruits and vegetables, in aquaculture, in maize, in root and tubers. We have put out, and I want to be very exact, over 200 innovations in the last 10 years. Obviously, these innovations are at the same time climate sensitive, at the same time gender sensitive, and at the same time youth sensitive. And since you're talking about give us, you know, some of the proven ones. So in my time going around West Africa, what I found, for instance, is that the composite bread technology, which is an innovation that was developed by the research system in Senegal, is doing pretty great for those who are involved in the bakery sector. Just giving you that as an example, right? If you go to if you stay in a country like Nigeria, I went to Nigeria, talked to a lot of the users of some of the aquaculture technologies, be it not only upfront technologies, but technologies that allows you to be able to transform a fish into end products, sort of like the smoking kiln that we found in Nigeria. These are really transformative. You know, in northern Nigeria, for instance, that we visited, what we found, for instance, is that women who previously didn't have any activities, in part because culturally they're restricted to just sitting in the households, they now constitute themselves in groups and they can smoke fish and then hand them over to their husbands to sell. What they say is that not only does this, you know, empower these women, gives them a little bit more additional income, but they can contribute and feel the pride of contributing in raising their families. This is the sort of things that we are talking about here. So there are over 200 of them in the last 10 years, coming mostly out of a big intervention that was sponsored by the World Bank. The Gambia participated in that, just to put it on the table. And those technologies are there. The point now is, how do you scale that up to the level where you can have sort of a big structural transformation of the agricultural industry? I think that's a question that the region has to deal with it right now. But I have to say that the good news is that the World Bank, again, with some of the national partners, are considering going on to another phase, maybe with a little more focus on climate change. And so there's a new intervention under discussion at this point. It could be over 1 billion. So that's really huge. And the goal is that, you know, we can pick some of those technologies and move them out to scaling right away. But it wouldn't just be technologies. It would also be making sure that we're addressing some of the issues that we are seeing in the region at this point with respect to, you know, crisis and that sort of thing.
That's great. Thank you very much, David. And yeah, for our members that wish to view that video, we'll make that available. But it's effectively, if you search on YouTube for KORAF, you should find their video. Fantastic. And we didn't have time to showcase that today. So great answer. Thank you, David, for giving us that insight. I wonder if I could pass that question on to the Madame Fabure now, and just, would you care to comment on some of the innovations that you see in the agric sector in the Gambia, please?
Thank you very much. As David mentioned, we were supported by World Bank around 2013 to around 2010. So based on that, agriculture in the Gambia, we have a lot of small-scale farmers, especially the women farmers. These are the people producing the food we consume, especially rice, vegetables. So based on that, we want to upskill or improve on that legacy, because as a first female minister in the history of Gambia, I want us to leave legacy with my team. That can only be done if agriculture is mechanized, because we are so constrained with farm mechanization and also quality seed. But thanks to God, at the moment we have the National Seed Secretariat. Some of them, they can certify their seed, especially the farmers. So a lot of money we spend outside to buy seeds for planting material, now we can have it in the Gambia. So at least we want to improve that sector also, and also to mechanize agriculture. Then the other one is livestock production. In fact, Gambia, we spend a lot of money outside. So we want to improve our livestock production and the productivity, and also poultry production, because most of these poultry products, they come from Holland and other countries. So most of these small scale farmers, they have the capacity to produce enough poultry and even livestock more ruminant. So their capacity has to be improved. So in a nutshell, we want to improve agriculture. So I think I need the support of donors as the first female minister in the history of Gambia. I think we need to improve agriculture in the Gambia. Thank you.
That's excellent to hear. Thank you for that answer. I noticed one of the threads coming through both presentations from specific ones on Western Africa, just the importance of gender and actually how that, if we empower women and give them the resources, often that hits a lot of the development goals that we're so keen to meet within this programme. So I wondered if perhaps Jane and Catherine would care to talk about that from the programme's point of view, how gender is being raised up as a profile and the importance of that to the programme, and then perhaps passing that over to David and to the Honourable Madame February, just to comment on that and how that can impact the agri-food sector in Western Africa. So perhaps Catherine first, and then perhaps Jane.
Thanks, Tim. So I think it is very, very important, and as part of the programme, the whole issue of sort of gender equality and social inclusion is there is a thread through every part of the programme. So for the Agritech Catalyst, as an example, projects that people submit have to provide information about sort of how you're going to deliver the desired economic and societal impacts and take into account gender equality and social inclusion throughout your project. So that's looking at the project team, the project outcomes, your route to impact, so all the way through your project. And that is an integral part of the assessment process to make sure that projects, when they submit them, have looked at this and really understand the impact of their project on sort of gender equality and social inclusion.
Thanks, Catherine. Very helpful. And Jane, I wonder if I could come to you next just to comment on that. And the other point to pick up also is just the average age of the scientists, which was 55. I think David mentioned that in his. I know last week we talked about this, about how do we help this sector. But Jane, if you care to comment.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting. We had a discussion last week, didn't we, about the average age of agricultural and food scientists in Africa being approximately 60. And it must be said that in the UK, the numbers are not that much better. So we have a lot of the same issues in terms of trying to attract younger people into agriculture and to the food systems research and implementation, both in the UK already, and also to try and encourage that within an African context. And I know that some of the universities, for example, are trying to encourage the educated sort of to actually go into the agricultural sector. And it seemed to me that there was two issues there, and one of those was the making it clear that you can make money from doing agricultural work, and two, as the minister said, it's that sort of mechanization and actually taking it away from the viewpoint of the hard work, little reward type story. Personally, I feel that it's very, very important that we intervene in practical ways so that you can actually make changes to people's lives, because if you make that change through enabling women to succeed, as they're such a large part of the agricultural systems in African agriculture, then you will actually effect change. And there's been quite a lot of data already shown that if you actually implement the change via women, then the health and nutritional status of children within those families will improve too. Of course, you know, as a 50-something woman working within what used to be a male environment, I'm also of the view that the way that you also do it is by getting out there. And as Madame February said, you know, she's the first female minister, and I think that showing people, having the right role models also helps, that you can show people that you can actually succeed and do well as a woman, and that will help at a different level as well. I hope that answers your question, Tim.
No, that's great. Thank you for those thoughts, and it's very useful to hear you know, some of the stats that David brought up. And I wonder if we could finish this little section perhaps with Madame Fabure and just commenting on how how the Gambia is addressing this in terms of agri-food. How are you getting women and young people involved in agri-food sector in the Gambia?
Thank you very much. As a ministry, we are supporting our women farmers in terms of inputs. That's improve seeds, especially vegetable seeds, and also certified right seeds, so that at least they can improve their production and productivity, and also to add value. But value addition is also a challenge because they are producing a lot of vegetables, but marketing becomes a big challenge. But still, we are trying to improve their production and productivity so that they can also have nutritious food. Okay, in terms of youth, also, we are trying to set up a youth innovative centers because we have quite a number of mixed farming centers across the country. So at the moment, we are rehabilitating some of those mixed farming centers so that the youths around the regions can embark on farming so that they can learn best practices from those centers.
That's great. Thank you very much for that answer, Madame. And we have one question, a specific question here for David from Victor, Victor Olori, who asks, how can you help in development and dissemination of livestock, superior genetic seed stock, especially of ruminants in the region? So over to you, David.
Well, how can we help? Well, obviously, KORAF has sort of the coordination responsibility of research and development in West Africa, and livestock, it's obviously an integral part of the work that we do at this point. I think in one of the slides that I think I shared with you earlier on, we are actually doing an integrated agri-input strategy in the region, and that involves livestock as well. So we've had to sort of, implement a couple of livestock-related interventions. And so if it's about how can we do that, well, we do work with farmer associations in the region because we don't do the work. If you know exactly how KORAF is structured, obviously the technical arm of ECOWAS, so ECOWAS provides us a political coverage, and we work like we bring in the technical support, but we work mostly with the country partners. So our partners are mostly at the country levels, and they do the legwork. So if it's about how do you disseminate any livestock, related, I say that livestock related, technologies or anything in that light, it will be through our local partners.
That's great. Thank you, David. I'm just going to try and get through some of the specific questions that we have, just so that we can try and cover all the comments that we're getting on the YouTube and the Facebook. So this is for Jane first, a question from Chris Sheenan, who's asking, is there a KTN type resource, i.e. a single country portal that will give specific data and support available for any particular country? And this Chris is interested on Sierra Leone in particular.
No, is the simple answer. What we can do is if he contacts us directly, we can actually answer the question in the broadest terms, but we don't have like a single sort of portal. We do have access to a variety of different funding mechanisms and opportunities, but that would be on a case-by-case basis, and he's probably best to just give us a call.
Thank you, Jane. The other resource I'd maybe perhaps point out as well, the Agritech Catalyst Round winners, if you were interested in those projects, those are available on the government site. So if you search Agritech, go on, Catherine.
Sorry, Tim, I was just going to add to that I think the comment question was specifically as well around potatoes in Sierra Leone, which, we haven't funded anything specifically, but we are funding a project around exploring the potential for potatoes as a new crop in the north of Ghana, which, although is not Sierra Leone, it is sort of on the potato side of things. And I'll pop the link on the YouTube as well for that. Thanks, Tim.
That's great. Thank you, Catherine. So yeah, if you want to see other projects, you can also search for that AgriTech Catalyst round. There's some very interesting projects out there. Another specific one for, we'll give this to Catherine, sorry. Are there teams in West Africa as well as East Africa developing surveillance technologies for locusts, as we've been working between Manchester and Lincoln to develop an AI Internet of Things solution?
We haven't funded anything through the Catalyst on that, but I know sort of the Department for International Development to be doing a lot of work in that area. So I can find out if there are any particular links that might be useful. So I'll take that away and see if we've got anything that will be helpful. That's
great. Thank you, Catherine. A specific question here for David from Benjamin Ovio. David, can you shed more light on the composite bread technology? So would you just care to give a few comments on that, please, David?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tim. So if you look at the bakery sector in West Africa, a lot of the inputs comes in from abroad. So flour, it's imported and that sort of thing. And what that does is that it then builds up and then makes the production cost extremely expensive. So how do you solve that? So researchers said, and obviously using raw materials from the region. So cassava, for instance, which is produced in very high quantities in Cote d'Ivoire and in Ghana and in most West African countries. And obviously that's a cheap source of raw material. And so composite bread is essentially made out of, cassava. So it's a cassava flour. What that has done, it's relieved, those involved in the bakery sector in very significant ways. And obviously, if your production cost is low, then obviously it means that your revenue is going to be higher. And so I could provide links. We have videos about how that technology works. I can send that out to you right away if that's possible, so that you can send it out to, I don't know exactly the name, but I'm happy that they are interested in that technology. It's very cost effective, and I could just send the link over to you so you could send it to them so they can see exactly how it works. I think that'll be more productive. But essentially, it solves a major problem in the bakery sector. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer, David. And if you do want any follow-up, then do contact us. We will do our best to answer any questions and to direct anything specific to our speakers today. I have a specific question here for the Honourable Madame February from Victor, who's asking about the current status of the Ndama Cattle Genetic Improvement Project and how can other countries benefit from the gains of this project?
Thank you very much. In fact, at the moment, we don't have any projects on Ndama cattle. We wrote a proposal, but still now we don't have a sponsor yet. In fact, the then ITC, now we call it West Africa Livestock Innovative Center, WALIC. We are trying to improve that sector. So we already have our proposal. We wrote to ECOWAS and others so that we can have support. In fact, the Ndama cattle in the Gambia is a very good breed to improve on it. So at the moment, we need funding to expand on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see an opportunity for our members here. If you're listening and you're into cattle genetics, there's potential there for you. We have here a question. We're more of a comment, really. Catherine, I think this may be a short one for you, but would it be possible? This is from Mary Okpala, who's asking: would it be possible for Innovate UK to establish a food research institute in West Africa to enhance research and innovation? So, Catherine.
So we don't sort of set up research institutes themselves, but if there are research institutes that want to work with UK organisations, then they can apply for support through sort of the programme, whether it's a KTP, which you'll hear more about this afternoon, or whether it's an AgriTech Catalyst project. So institutes within Africa can apply, but we wouldn't sort of set them up from nothing. Hope that helps. Thanks.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. Just a question for Madame Fabure here. during the discussion on gender, one of the comments from Festa Sasaga was about the challenge to women's participation in West Africa, because it can impact on tenure security and security of women's land rights. I know this isn't necessarily your area of expertise, but I wonder if you could just address that. How does land tenure affect women within the Gambia in terms of their access to agri-food opportunities?
Thank you very much. If you talk about land right, is access to land. Women, they have access to land in this country. And at the moment, we have quite a number of women who own land, because the people producing vegetables, especially horticulture, we have women groups. They are registered. They are registered as a group, and they have a legal right to access land. In fact, for the women groups, we have registered quite a number of them, more than 100 gardens, to name few. They have that land title, that land ownership. And anytime the woman want to do cultivation, they have access to land. Sometimes the ownership become a problem, but as a ministry, we are trying to address some of those issues.
Thank you very much for that, Minister. One question here for David from Frank, who hasn't given his surname. How may one access basic technologies that could help farmsteads in rural areas store their fresh produce? And he's asking also if there's any finance available, and if possible, how could you go about securing that?
Well, that's a good question from, you said Frank, right? Important for us to acknowledge that individual. Is it Frank or Pedro? I see it's Pedro, yeah. If I'm not...
No, it's from Frank.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. There are a lot of, if you take, for instance, the aquaculture sector, there are a lot of storage related technologies that have been generated. And for those working in rural areas, they can access those. Obviously, there's a cost related implication. You have to purchase that technology. I'm just using that, commodity, for instance, for those in the vegetable sector. The thing is, what you see in West Africa at this point is that for the national centers of specialization, which is a concept that I'm just throwing out here without necessarily assuming that you all understand that, but it's an emanation of, bringing together national agricultural research systems to work on a single commodity. What they've done is that they've looked at, the value chain, seeing how is the best way in which you can address that, and put in place some technologies. Some of them include storage technologies. And so, some of them are available. If it's a little bit more specific to what sector, then I can address some of those. With respect to availability of funding, that's always a tricky issue. My organization is essentially a research coordination institution. We work mostly with national agricultural research systems. So we commission projects, and what that means is you put money essentially into national agricultural research systems and not to individuals. However, you do have situations where at the country level, with respect to some programs, there are capacity development programs where if you're a student, for instance, you're interested in doing further studies, then obviously you can get funding at the level of the government. So we don't have any resources for individuals. However, we've had young programs for younger people where we actually help them, sort of get the skills that are required for them to be able to set up as agripreneurs. But besides that, we don't have any real funding for anyone.
Thank you very much, David. I think we will draw today's session to a close. May I just remind people that if you are looking for funding opportunities, we do have our session this afternoon, which will cover some of those opportunities in terms of people who wanted to collaborate together. I think that comes back to the point, some of the questions here from Daniel, who's asking about collaborators. And actually, if you are looking to partner with somebody, the best way to do that through this program is using our Meeting Mojo. There are formal networking sessions where you can see who's on there and ask if you can have a 10-minute window to speak to them, and perhaps the next idea on collaboration will come from that. I think it's been a great session, very useful to hear the views from our speakers. particularly enjoyed the insight into Western Africa and how some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that exist in that sector. Clearly, there are many challenges, but also I think the opportunity for development and for innovation within the sphere is greater than ever. And so I hope our members will appreciate that. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And we look forward to seeing you at another session. Thank you very much and goodbye.